Screw your freedom.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny.
Binga bada boom. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. Time for the monologue and the Q&A. Today we got Uman sitting in the catbird seat, handling Jolene's job, his job, everyone's job. We may or may not have Crispy Bacon in the background with a big blue wrench, but I'm down here in Florida in his general zone. A lot of people are down here in Florida right now helping out. It's incredible, folks. The hurricane came through, was immense, powerful, caused a lot of damage. Thankfully, it didn't get my area, but a lot of other people are hurt and messed up. But that's not it, right? Now, on any other given decade prior to the Biden administration, this would have been the news of the day, the news of the week, maybe the news of the year, when a giant hurricane like this just smashes through and destroys a big swath of America. I know that the leftists, folks, the leftist losers out there, the communists, the fascists, the socialists, they were lamenting and they were hoping that this hurricane would go hit Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. And that little comment that they put on their social media account, one of these leftist organizations, got so much flack that they even took it down. Question I have is, why are they apologizing? Why are they hiding? This is how they feel. They know that they hate Trump and they wish all kinds of hate and pain on all of us. If you're patriotic, if you're a Trump supporter, you're evil, right? That's what they say. Republicans are evil. I mean, how many times do we have to hear it from these people, right from their own mouths?
There are public figures today, yesterday, and the day before predicting and all but calling for mass violence and rioting in the streets.
Obviously, Republicans, I think, are the biggest threat to democracy. We don't separate right-wing extremists and Republican Party anymore. Republicans, I think, are the biggest threat to democracy. We don't separate right-wing extremists and Republican Party anymore. Republicans are the biggest threat to democracy.
This means war. That is where we are. We are at war with these people. These folks are evil. These folks are evil.
These folks are evil. There's no separation between Republicans and extremist Republicans, folks. They said they hoped that Mar-a-Lago and Trump would have been destroyed by this hurricane. Well, they weren't. But now they're hiding their words. Folks, these left-wing lunatics are out of their fucking gourds. I was just talking with Uman prior to the show. He's in the background there. I'm not going to surprise and pop him up on the screen. That wouldn't be nice today. I'm folks, it's incredible how evil these left-wingers are. They're the ones committing acts of violence. They're the ones wishing pain, hate, suffering on everyone else. They're the ones destroying America and morality. And we're going to talk about a lot of that, right? The fact that this hurricane has destroyed so much. I mean, the pictures are horrifying. I sent them to Uman. I sent them to others from literally just down the road from where I'm at now. I think 75 miles from where I'm at is where the destruction took place, the real destruction. It's horrifying, and yet these people celebrate it and wish it on others. Just remember that, folks, when the partisan conflict starts. Well, and there's partisan conflict at home, and there's going to be major conflict abroad. Now, I'm going to tell you how it started. It started with NATO taking Eastern Bloc countries and making them NATO allies, Estonia, Lithuania, and many others. And that was against their promise. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, promised in, we could call this an accord, an agreement, in writing, that they wouldn't do that they wouldn't encroach upon Russia with NATO expansion. And they did, and then they threatened Ukraine, and now we have the Ukraine war, And then we had ethnic cleansing. We had human rights atrocities being committed by the Ukraine military. And folks, Zelensky didn't deny it. He just says, it is what it is, right? Russia invades, liberates Donetsk, right? Luhansk. And now they are going to annex them. That is, these countries voted in a referendum. Now, Western media is saying it's a fraud referendum. It's a fraud. It's fraudulent. I thought we weren't allowed to question elections anymore. Well, folks, they're full of shit. They really are. These people are absolutely full of shit. Well, you know, whether the elections were real or not. And folks, I'm sure the elections were real. I'm sure the results have been skewed. It's incredible. In the territories that voted to become part of Russia as new Russian Federation states, they all won with more than 90% of the vote, the voting public saying they wanted to become part of Russia. Well, whether you believe the Russian story, the Luhansk and Donetsk story, whether you believe them or not, Putin is accepting them in, and the Russian parliament, Russian Congress is going to accept them in. And folks, Putin is going to give a major speech as part of this ceremony. Now, here it is from Zero Hedge. Russia has announced it is holding an annexation ceremony on Friday for the 4 regions which just conducted a 5-day referendum on whether to join the Russian Federation. It will mark the final move declaring the territories effectively under Kremlin control and its citizens as now Russian. Tomorrow in St. George's Hall in the Grand Kremlin Palace, folks, and that's not St. George Floyd, that's the Russian St. George. A signing ceremony will take place in the incorporation of the new territories into Russia. That's a Kremlin statement, folks. That would be like Washington, D.C. saying Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti have all passed, right, a referendum saying they want to become part of the United States. And the United States is ready to accept them as states. And we don't care what anyone else thinks. They held their referendum, and we want them, and now it's happening. And we're going to have a big ceremony in Washington, D.C. That's exactly what the Kremlin or the Russians are doing. Exactly, folks. And it's an example. Right now, in addition to this ceremony, Putin is expected to make a major speech, according to Dmitry Peskov, right? Polls in the breakaway republics of Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia closed by Tuesday evening and expected to return an overwhelming yes vote, and they did. The annexation will be formalized at the ceremony. Now, Putin said this in a televised media, right? He declared a huge sweep. Huge sweep. In some of the regions, the yes vote was 98%, folks. It was somewhat expected, especially in the Russian-speaking republics, where they did not speak Ukraine. They spoke Russian, right? And the dividing line had already been made clear through years of war going back to 2014. Isn't that interesting? Let's see, when Vladimir Voldemort Zelensky became the new leader of Ukraine back in 2014, doing a coup d'etat, the Russians went to the eastern side of the country. Okay, they've already been segregating themselves. So is it so hard to believe that 98% voted in favor of becoming Russian? Not really. Is it so hard to believe that this separation in Ukraine, and this is important for you and I as Americans, understand this. The country was taken over in a coup d'etat. Think 2020. Shortly thereafter, and for many years, the country self-segregated. The Russians went to the eastern side of the country. The Ukrainians went to the western side. So Luhansk, Donetsk, right, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, they are heavily on the eastern side of Ukraine, Russian. and the other side, ethnic Ukrainians. And the Ukrainian Azov Nazi battalion has been going over to eastern Ukraine and committing war atrocities, slaughtering Russians. They've been having a small scale, shall we call it, partisan conflict, not a full-on civil war. And now they've been begging for Russian help. And as soon as NATO said, hey, we'll come on over there and help you there, Zelensky, that's when Vladimir Putin said, enough of this shit, and rolled in. And now they have voted. They are breakaway republics. They have left Ukraine, and they said, we would rather be associated with Russia. And here we are today. Right? The White House, which has Biden as its leader, the White House with Biden, who can't find his way off stage, who was corrected by the head of FEMA. Mr. President, you're going in the wrong direction. He's not even a good puppet anymore, folks. Puppets know how to act and behave when they're not on the strings and speaking the words. He can't even act as an independent human being, much less act very well as a puppet. So the White House, which is nothing but a puppet regime controlled by Obama and really controlled by the World Economic Forum. They had a statement and called these sham referendums, as if Biden is not a fucking sham on a global scale. Now, this is what the White House says. Quote, the United States will never recognize Ukrainian territory as anything other than part of Ukraine. Russia's referendum are a sham, a false pretext to try to annex parts of Ukraine by force in flagrant violation of international law, including the United Nations Charter. If that's the case, then the United Nations should have a vote and kick Russia out of the United Nations, should they not? Remove their Security Council level, their founding member level. They should do that. They should sanction Russia, should they not? But the United Nations hasn't. So this is nothing but a bunch of socialist, authoritarian propaganda coming out of the White House in D.C. Not that the Kremlin isn't full of shit on its own side, folks. Don't misunderstand me. But when you've got sham versus sham and tyrant versus tyrant, don't ask me to pick a side and say, this is my preferred tyrant. I just know how this game is playing out. One of these tyrants is full of shit. The other tyrant, not so much. Now, the White House added, we will continue to support the Ukrainian people and provide them with security assistance to help them defend themselves as they courageously resist Russia's invasion. Well, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, Crimea, those are all going to be part of Russia. Now, understand, Odessa is still a port city, a huge port on the Black Sea that is controlled by Ukraine. I don't see Russia trying to take that. But folks, it is incredible what is going on. Now, the reason I brought that up, the part about the Russians going to the Russian side of Ukraine and the Ukrainians going to the Ukraine side of Ukraine, separating, kind of reminds me of what's happening in the United States right now. As things get worse and worse in the United States, Republicans are moving south. And I'll tell you what, I'm down here in the South. Right now I'm in Florida, but I'm in the South. And guess what I've heard? There are a lot of people leaving the South and going north because property is cheaper. They're buying places up in Pennsylvania and Ohio. They're moving up into Illinois where things are cheap, where they can buy a house cheap. Well, they're Democrats, I suppose, and they don't mind the leadership up there, and it's certainly a lot cheaper for them, they think, because prices are going up here as people move down. So we have a sifting and separation, kind of like Ukraine. We had what I would call a fraud sham election here. And a lot of people would agree with that summation. Right, now get this, folks. The U.S. is said to be preparing further sanctions in response to the annexation move. What else can they do to Russia, folks? If they could have done anything to Russia, they would have done it already. Don't forget, Both the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines have been detonated. They have been sabotaged. They have been destroyed utterly. Irreparable damage has been done to them. It would take billions of dollars and many, many, many years to repair it. That means Germany and Germany and all of Europe are going to be without energy. How much more can they hurt Russia, and how much more can Russia hurt them? It's unbelievable, folks. It's unbelievable. Get your questions in down below. Get them so Uman can put them up, because the first half of the show is mine. The second half of the show belongs to you. You can ask questions about what has happened and what I've seen down here as far as attitude, damage, et cetera, et cetera. You can talk about what's going on up in Washington, attitude damage and what have you, as well as what's going on in Europe. Don't forget, right now, folks, Kamala Harris, the troglodyte moron of a vice president, actually said these words. Speaking of the U.S., she said, it's an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. That is gaff-tastic. That is unbelievably irresponsible of her to make that kind of thing. We have allies in South Korea, folks. The Republic of North Korea is supposedly run by a small, little, fat, round tyrant of a man, right? Like Kim Jong-un, communist extraordinaire. And she says that she has an alliance, the U.S. has an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. She truly is a troglodyte and a moron. And who knows what else she's going to say before we get to the end of this. But right now, folks, the big war, the big scare is what is going to be the response to Russia saying those four places, Luhansk, Donetsk, right, Kherson, Zaporizhia, is where the huge nuclear power plant is, the largest single nuclear power plant station in all of Europe, is going to fall into a Russian Republic state. And they can cut power off to the rest of Ukraine, folks. They can make Ukraine pay them gold, literal gold, for that power if they wish. This is where this is going, folks. What do you think? Let me ask you this question. What do you think the U.S. response will be? Right? The U.S. and NATO, England, wanted to up the stakes against Russia. So Russia said, fine, we'll up the stakes and we'll invade and free our people and our territories. And then the U.S. said, yeah, well, we're going to attack you with Ukraine and we'll use Ukraine as the proxy army. So Russia said, oh, yeah, well, they're going to hold an election, and pow, Eastern Ukraine is now part of Russia. And folks, if you recall, last week and the week before, Russia let the world know they will not tolerate any Russian territory being attacked or invaded. And they will use nuclear weapons. It is not a bluff. Do you think that Putin will use nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, strategic hypersonic missile attacks on Kiev, on Volodymyr Zelensky? It's getting serious, folks. We're very close to World War III. If they want to push it, what do the elite have to lose if they just stop? They don't have to lose anything. The elite already own the corporations. They own property. They own the yachts. They own the banks. Why don't they just let Ukraine go, folks? Just let it go. You guys lost. Let it go. Even Henry Kissinger. We are in control at the White House. Henry Kissinger, back during the Tricky Dick Nixon regime, right? That was his statement. We are in control at the White House, right? He says, hey, it's enough of this Ukraine madness. Back off, World Economic Forum. And the other half of the World Economic Forum said, you shut up, you old man. We don't care what you think. Unbelievable where this is heading. What is the U.S. response, folks? Continue to harangue Russia, or actually supply Ukraine with weapons and try and invade the new Russian Federation states and try and take them back? And I don't give a shit, a frog's fat ass, if Washington, D.C. accepts or does not accept them as federation states. The fact of the matter is, possession is 9/10 of the law, as my dear old mother used to say. If Russia is controlling them with military, then they are Russian. Period. If the people there are Russian and they are living there, then it's Russian. Every bit as much as, and we may not like it, if Taiwan is invaded by China and they push all the Taiwanese into the sea and Taiwan is held and populated by the Chinese, then it becomes a Chinese territory. Folks, understand this. Back in, I think it was 64 AD, right? The beginning, right? After the BC era, the before Christ, and then after, right? 64 AD, there was a revolt in Jerusalem, a revolt against Rome. What Rome did was they obliterated Jerusalem. And not only did they take it over, they sacked it. They kicked every Jew out of Jerusalem. It's a Jewish city, you say. Yeah, well, they kicked every Jew out of the city. Jews were no longer allowed to live in their own city. They got kicked the fuck out. That's how Roman it became as a consequence of the conflict. If China wants to own Taiwan, all they have to do is invade it and kick all of the Taiwanese out. They can do it, folks. If it was done in 64 AD, it can be done today. And over the past 8 years, the Ukrainians have left eastern Ukraine and the Russians have migrated into it. And so it's owned, it's populated by Russians, it's being held by the Russian military and going to be protected by Russian nuclear weapons. It is no longer a part of Ukraine, whether the United States government likes it or not. Fact. To go further, folks, is to risk greater SHTF for you and me. Are you prepared? Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. Hurricane Ian just rolled through Cape Coral, Florida. Obliterated, wiped everything out. Homes, streets, smashed, ruined. It looks like a war zone. The only difference is, folks, is how the destruction occurred. I don't want to see any more war zone. But what do we have up in D.C. going on? Threatening more war. Unbelievable, folks, right? The Democrats, right? Occupy Democrats, right? They delete their tweet wishing Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate was destroyed by Hurricane Ian. Why are these butt pirates and Satan worshipers hiding it? Why are they pretending they don't want more conflict, more war, and more destruction? Well, because there is an election coming up. And they don't control it as much as they hoped. They don't. They don't. But these people are sick. They're completely sick and disgusting. Oh, by the way, the first openly transgender U.S. Army officer, first openly trans U.S. Army officer and his wife, and I don't know what gender the wife was born as, were arrested. And they had a plot to give United States medical records to Russia. What is this all about, right? Well, we've been told that sexual depravity is normal. That's normal behavior. That's to be accepted. We've been told that sexual screwiness isn't a mental problem, even though it was considered a problem just a little while ago. We were told that perversion in the bedroom and then perversion in the military would never affect anyone's morality or lead to corruption. How many more of these sick bastards are pretending to be normal, folks, while guilting everybody into accepting them as decent, incorruptible Pentagon officers, while they sell us out, fuck us over, and destroy what was once a beacon of patriotism, the U.S. military? All these sick bastards, folks, can go to hell. This is why I don't trust the U.S. government. I don't trust the Pentagon anymore. They're complaining about what is going on with Putin, but when we find out what a bunch of sick, perverted people the Ukrainian government are, and don't forget, folks, when the Ukraine war first started, All of the bureaucrats that had access to cash, US dollars, suitcases full of euros, European currency, they tried fleeing the country and they got caught at the border with suitcases full of cash. Whose cash was that? It's the same people, folks. They may have a funny accent and look a little different, but they're the same type of people. They're a bunch of scum. They run Ukraine. They run the U.S. bureaucratic state in Washington, D.C. They run the European Union, and they're running everything right into the frickin' ground. They suck the very worst people they can into the Pentagon. They suck them out of colleges and universities. These are sick people. They have their social networks and social circles, right? And they've been caught. They've been caught, folks. They've been exposed by the libs of TikTok, right? The libs of TikTok. They've been suspended on Twitter again. Now, the one of the head big shots at libs of TikTok who exposes these sick, disgusting, filthy bastards who are Democrats and socialists and communists and fascists. Everyone on the far, far, far left of the political spectrum, folks, are Democrats and rhino Republicans, and they're exposing themselves, right? So they get suspended for exposing what these people are doing. So one of the big shots there at libs of TikTok, who says they've been suspended, says, Twitter claims I have violated their hateful conduct policy. But like my last suspension, they have provided no explanation as to how I violated this policy. Was it hateful to expose an all-ages drag show where a stripper performed in front of children? Was it hateful to expose a drag queen who allowed a small child to repeatedly rub their crotch? No, it's not hateful. It exposes them. And who wants more of this shit? The U.S. military wants this shit in the military. They're hosting drag queen shows on military bases, claiming it's going to help make them a better military. Unbelievable how sick these people are, folks. Unbelievable. And they want to call that virtuous. They want to expose more children to this stuff. This is the military, folks. The sick perversion is the military. The sick perversion is Washington, D.C. They are very, very sick, folks. Right? The Tennessee House Republicans in Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, request that Vanderbilt, a medical university, Vanderbilt Medical, stop performing gender-changing surgeries on children. And they call it abuse. Well, it is. But this is a perverted university. And there are many more like it out there. This perverted university provides perverted leftists. And when I say perverted, folks, I mean truly sick people. People who want to give hysterectomies to young women, to pubescent women, to prepubescent women. They want boys, right, to take gender-bending drugs, and they think it's just great. These are the same people that send money into Washington, D.C. to push the sick, twisted. I mean, it's beyond. To see how perverted this country is as they open the southern border and allow people through. Criminals, human smugglers, drug dealers, murderers, rapists, and they just allow them in our country. Well, if we send them to Martha's Vineyard, if we send them to D.C., if we send them to Chicago, they scream that that's a crime and it's a humanitarian crisis. But they want them in the rest of the country. They're destroying America. They're destroying the economy. They're destroying everything they can. They're destroying our educational system, our university. They're destroying the minds and bodies of young people. And we want to sit here and condemn Putin? You want me to accept Biden? She was 12, I was 30. They want to condemn us, father of Hunter Biden, snorting coke off a hooker's ass, Hunter Biden, weighing his crack out in the presence of a hooker, arguing about how much it is, that Hunter Biden, the smartest guy Joe Biden knows, that Hunter Biden, while they sell gas and oil through Hunter Biden's connections to China, our gas, our oil, and the strategic oil reserve. It's about energy, folks. It's about power. It's about money. It's about banking. It's about controlling the system. It's about controlling you and me. It's about creating an SHTF situation that no one is going to get out of unscathed. Are you prepared? I don't think that's an unfair question to ask. Let's get it on.
Are you ready?
All righty, folks. Let's do this. Let's take a look. We're going to go and start with Bonnie Blue. Thank you, Mr. Uman. And trust me, Uman, I'm going to have to interject a lot of my own stuff in the Q&A section because I am now wide awake and pissed off. I'm tired as fuck, folks. Sitting up all night waiting for the hurricane to change direction and smash into me, tear the roof off this place, and cause a whole lot of trouble. It didn't, but I'm still exhausted anyway. So Bonnie Blue says, I'm old enough to remember when Vanderbilt was a respected university. It is the Ivy League of the South. 30 years later, they are woke. Yes, they are, folks. Now, you've heard the expression, one hand washes the other. That's true. One hand washes the other. Except instead of putting soap on their hands, they put all manner of filth and scum and feces. One hand is the political wing of the government. The other hand is the educational system. And they are smearing the filth all over each other. You could say the same of DC and corporate America. The fascist connection, business and government, corrupting each other, paying each other off. One hand washing the other, except they're not getting clean, they're getting filthy dirty. Yes, folks, all these colleges are absolutely filthy. Governments are loaded with abomination and perversion, folks. Why should we, you and I, why should we obey them? Now, over in Spain, folks, just to show you how bad, this is not an American issue only. Spain's Minister of Equality. Why do we need a Minister of Equality? Everyone in government should be all about equality, equal application of the law, equal application of opportunity, equal application of everything. So the Minister of Equality says children have, get this, quote, the right to know that they can love and have sexual relations with anyone. Over here in America, they have minor attracted persons, MAPS. Minor attracted persons. What a sanitized and clean sounding word for a sick, depraved, perverted pile of shit. It's not just an American issue, folks. It's in Europe. Every single country is infested and infected with these perverted pieces of shit. It's in the college systems. It's in the military systems. It's in the corporate system, folks. They are a bunch of very, very, very sick and disgusting and just gross people. And I don't think the word abomination is too harsh. Unbelievable. I wanted to bring up Spain, folks, because I don't want you to think that I'm just picking on, Joe Biden and the Democrats. These people are worldwide. Why do you think Putin is saying it ain't coming to Russia? Why do you think Viktor Orban of Hungary is saying it ain't coming to Hungary? And other countries are saying no more of this shit. Italy, right? Prime Minister Meloni, right? Standing up and shouting down the fascists and the Davos douches and saying no more. It's coming, folks. It's coming. But over in New Zealand, down in New Zealand, remember her, old horse face herself? Jacinto, whatever the fuck her name is, the leader there, right? Unbelievable. Jacinda Ardern has labeled internet freedom a weapon of war. Internet freedom, free speech, the free exchange of ideas and information is a weapon of war. Well, they use it to communicate and commit dirty, disgusting acts of fascist cooperation between governments and corporations, folks. If you try and use it to communicate facts about what they're doing, that makes it a weapon of war. Right? Now, she ruled her country like a 17th century tyrant during the COVID pandemic, right? And she wants, these people are sick. They're going to continue to attack you. That's the point of this. They're going to continue to attack us, attack our freedom. They're going to continue to call for the sexualization of children and the perversion of government and business and finance and monetary systems. Unbelievable, folks. If we can do this, man, let's take another look at a question from you guys. Get your questions in. We got Chris B. Bacon, and he asked this question. Will the United States blow up something else to assure that these referendum annexations don't lead to peace? And I know, or I think I know what you're talking about, Chris. And I'm glad I'm down here, folks, just a few miles from Mr. Chris at this moment. I've got the camouflage hung up to camouflage my location. I'm glad we made it through this, Chris, in one piece. Indian Rock, once again, saves the area. Now, will the U.S. blow something else? Well, it appears by all indications of those with an intelligent mind who aren't sellouts and liars that the United States government, or should I say, corrupt elements of it, are more than likely and the most likely to be responsible for blowing up Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines. So Chris says, will they blow up something else to assure that the referendum annexations don't lead to peace? Well, the referendum annexation, that is the 4 states, Luhansk and Donetsk, Kherson and Zaporizhia, they make up the entire eastern edge of Ukraine, along with the Crimean Peninsula. If Russia owns them as federation states, if they annex them as federation states and say, we're done fighting you, you stay over there, these are the new boundaries, you cross that boundary, we're going to kick the ever-loving shit out of you, and we're going to send missiles into Kiev. Russia can say that. That kind of leads to peace. So what if, as Crispy Bacon alludes to here, what if the United States sends a bunker buster through the roof of one of the nuclear power plant domes? They put a containment dome, a pressure dome over the top of these to hold in any sort of explosion. The domes are to protect from internal explosion. They're very, very, very strong. If the United States or some other country were to do that, would that cause the peace to go away? The answer, I think, is yeah. I think Russia would say, how dare you light up not only our territory, but create a nuclear disaster. They can't claim, folks, if the Russians control and own the Zaporizhia nuclear power station, why would they shell it? Why would they bomb their own area? This idea that the Russians are bombing something that they hold, they possess, and they've got their own troops at is absolutely preposterous and ridiculous beyond human imagination. But we're supposed to believe that the Russians are shelling it when they control it and it's in a territory that they control, and now they're going to own as an annexed state? Yeah, like America, they would go to like Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant in California, and the Marine Corps and the Navy would use it as part of their bombing targeting system to see if they could hit it. That makes no sense, does it? It makes about as much sense as Russia trying to blow up a nuclear power plant that they possess, own, control, and have troops around. So yeah, they could cause more war to break out if they were to bomb that nuclear power plant, which has been in the news, and the world is very, very, very aware of it. And another thing that could happen is the United States and Great Britain and NATO and the European Union could all line up and say, well, since Russia has annexed that, then we are going to move NATO troops, NATO forces, NATO bases, and NATO nukes into Ukraine. That would cause a wider war as well. They could either bomb something very important, like that nuclear power plant, cause a complete and total disaster, or they could just try and move NATO in and then make Russia respond. I just see the people of Ukraine, whether they're ethnic Russians or ethnic Ukrainians, being being part of a shooting gallery. Part of a shooting gallery. Wow, that'll clear your mind right out. You know, the big question is, will they push for more war, or will the United States, European Union, England, and NATO learn their lesson that you cannot force a country like Russia to submit when Russia has all of the most powerful cards in place? Literally, Russia holds all the oil, all the gas, all the coal, and 40% of the world's nuclear enrichment capability. And the U.S. is going to sanction them? Crazy, stupid shit. All right, Uman, who do we have next? Thank you, Crispy Bacon. Now we got Bonnie Blue 2A. She says, yes, Putin has no other options. He has lost too much military equipment. Tactical nukes would be relatively inexpensive for Putin. That is a great argument to make. Not to justify the escalation in war, but rather to justify making his point, right? No one wants to see nukes go off. And as far as we know, as far as governments have admitted, nuclear weapons haven't been used on an enemy since Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And they were used on civilian targets. So using tactical nukes, if Putin did that, I'm sure he would not use them on civilians in Kiev, even though there's going to be collateral damage of a significant degree, folks. But a tactical nuclear weapon would have far less destruction than what Hurricane Ian just did to Cape Coral, Florida. A tactical nuclear weapon could be used to target right where Zelensky is at, or some of his military establishments, or shall we say bases. They could be used in a number of places. Now, remember this, folks, and do not forget that there was an attempt 2 weeks ago to kill Putin using a car as a weapon, and there's probably a bomb in it. I wouldn't be surprised. Why just smash into his car when you can smash into it with an explosive device? Kind of a poor man's smart weapon. Remember, folks, that's not the first time an attempt to kill Putin has been made. And they seem rather amateurish, don't you think? Very amateurish. You would think that the CIA and MI6 and Mossad would have much better assassination techniques. Or maybe it's that Putin is so well protected that they can't get that close and can't get, right, a clean shot at him. But they're not going to give up. I doubt that the U.S. is going to give up. It's just, how do you respond? Did they really think they were hurting Russia by blowing up Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2? They tried saying that Russia did it to itself, that it sabotaged itself, when not only me, but many other commentators noted all Russia had to do was just turn off the spigot, turn off the valve, flick the switch, and just kill the power. And what's Europe going to do then? Why did they need to blow it all up? That only benefited the United States of America and a few other energy-producing countries, because now they get to sell energy to Europe at whatever price the market will bear. Whatever price the market will bear, folks. How would you like to buy liquid natural gas, LNG, or CNG, compressed natural gas? How would you like that? That you could buy it at, say, $3 a gallon and sell it over there for $20 a gallon. Yeah. You can now see how war is very, very profitable, and why the United States of America, or shall I say, the corporate masters, you can see why they would really want that deal, and to get Russia out of the equation, and to forever blame Russia for the problems that have been created in Germany, in Poland, in France, in the rest of Europe with this energy crisis. This energy crisis wasn't created by Russia. It was created by European countries saying, we want to decarbonize. We want clean environment. So no more coal, no more natural gas. Well, except they can't live without it. They can't live without natural gas. They can't live without coal. They can't live without nuclear. The people are going to be burning wood, for Pete's sake. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable what is going on. Right? And the chaos that we have in the White House. Right? The White House reporter, the press corps, was repeatedly demanding from Karine Jean-Pierre, the idiot White House spokesgirl, right, about Biden's confusion over Representative Jackie Walorski, who's dead. Yeah, Biden's talking to the dead. He's mumbling, right? He doesn't know how to get on the stage, off the stage, what to do while he's on the stage. He shakes hands with nobody or ghosts, Harvey the Rabbit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's our leadership here, folks. Or do you think there's someone else who's actually in charge? Oh, yeah, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly, folks. And the best that the Democrats could put up, the absolute best they had for 2020 was Joe Biden. That's how bankrupt they are, how unbelievable they are, how uncharismatic, how they have no leadership. They're a bunch of sycophant tyrants. And oh, if they had a charismatic leader, how powerful would they be? How dangerous. Anyways, let's move on if we shall. Uman, who do we want to bring up next? We've got Gary D. And he said, I saw a story on Fox that China is opening security stations in the USA and other countries to make sure of the welfare of Chinese citizens. Thoughts? Well, I'll tell you what. In Russia, there is a U.S. embassy, a consulate. And what are they there for? To communicate with the Kremlin, to communicate with Russian government, and to act as a liaison or a security station for U.S. citizens. You get in trouble, something happens, U.S. citizens in foreign countries go to the U.S. embassy and say, I'm an American, I have an issue, I have a problem, whatever it is, help me take care of it. So it doesn't surprise me that China is opening security stations in the U.S., but you would think that they would have to do it at Chinese embassies. Still, the United States government seems to allow China to do many things, like own farmland next to military bases. China seems to be able to buy real estate wherever it wants, whenever it wants, however it wants. China seems to be able to fund universities and smuggle state secrets from the United States that we pay for into Chinese-controlled hands. Yeah. It's probably true, and then more than true, folks, that China, right, has security stations, not only for the benefit of their citizens that are here, probably acting as spies, like, Fang Fang, who was digging her fangs into Representative Swallowswell, that traitorous Democrat, lecherous pile of shit from California. I don't mind saying these things, folks, because they're true, and they're public figures, and they deserve scrutiny, and they deserve and have earned, right? They have earned my ire and the ire of the American people. Let's do this. We got a little more, but I want to hear Uman's statement. Uman has let me know he has a statement. I'm very curious. Thank you, Gary D, very much. Appreciate your input here on the Prepared Mind channel. And it's nasty out there, folks. Absolutely nasty. And I'm not talking about just the damage from Hurricane Ian. Expect to see that type of damage in cities everywhere. In cities anywhere. Oh, no, I got you, man. I got you, Uman. Cities everywhere. They won't look like a hurricane went through. They may look like an army rolled through. They may look like a forest fire burned its way through cities and neighborhoods and entire sectors of the country. Because that's what the left is doing. They're destroying this country. And I have no problem pointing it out. All right, let's move on if we shall. We've got some more questions, comments. I want to get through them. Kathy LeMaster says, I was wondering why VA properties are showing up all the time at what seemed to be reasonable or below market prices. VA, meaning Veterans Administration Properties, or that's Virginia properties. I don't know what's going on, except to say that our country is being sold down the river. Whether it's corporations, real estate, raw materials, resources, this country is now for sale to the highest bidder, or hell, to any bidder that makes sure the most money gets into the hands of our corrupt bureaucrats and elected leaders in Washington, D.C. Kamala Harris, the Biden family, the Pelosi's, the Schumers, Virginia. Thank you, Kathy. Nothing but trouble is coming from all of this, and they've accelerated it. They're not wasting any time. And I want to ask you this. If China were to take control of this country through some incredible, desperate act of coup d'etat, and they were exposed as controlling the government, not Russia, but China, and all of these politicians that sold us out to China, do you think China would protect them for the rest of their lives? Do you think China would protect the Pelosi's and protect Mitch McConnell and his family? Do you think China would protect the Obamas? Or do you think China would go, you are the most filthy, loathsome, criminal sellouts, and we can't trust you. We already know that you would sell out your country. So how quickly would you sell us out, China, and turn on us? Right? That's exactly how the communists view people who are extremists, who are radicals. The communist folks use their radicals to commit revolution. The Bolsheviks, they committed revolution in Russia and turned it into a communist state, and then the Bolsheviks were killed. And then the military officer corps was viewed by Stalin as being too extreme, too dangerous, and he killed his own people that way. The German army, the SA, helped Hitler take control of the country, and then the SA was considered to be too radical and too dangerous, so the SS killed them. Folks, Chairman Mao of China, when he took control, how many people of his own do you think he killed? How many tens of millions? Because they were too radical, too dangerous, couldn't trust them. See, their revolution has to do with buying out, committing acts of violence, infiltrating. Ask Yuri Brezhnev. Look him up on YouTube, Yuri Brezhnev. Ex-communist, defected to the United States, and explained exactly how the communists take over countries. They're doing it right now to America. And it'll come down to you and me, folks. It'll come down to real Americans to stand up to them. There's going to come a point when their violence, folks, becomes overt, when their means and methods become so obvious that no one can deny them. When, folks, the mask comes off the beast. And when fully exposed, they have no choice but to violently attack their own people. We're getting very close to that. Watch what's happening. Look how the President of the United States called you, me, patriots, parents, law-abiding citizens. Anyone who's a Republican is now evil. Really? Really? We're the evil ones? I don't think so. Are you prepared with food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense? Whether it's a hurricane, an earthquake in California, whether it's a social uprising in this country coming from a bunch of leftist radical scumbags, or whether it's a direct attack promulgated by the Democrats in Washington, D.C., promoted by the mainstream media, and encouraged by local, state, and other Democrats across the country. It's okay to commit acts of violence. Sure. Unbelievable. While they enrich themselves, folks, enrich themselves at our expense. Dr. Fauci, folks, his net income, his net worth practically doubled. It almost doubled during the pandemic of 2020 till now. 200,000 businesses closed down due to his policies and his recommendations and his demands, but his net worth doubled. Doubt me that these people are selling us out, that there's a conflict of interest at the very top in Washington, D.C., the bureaucracy. The leader of the National Institutes of Health gets to double his net worth into the millions and millions and millions. 200,000 businesses, folks. Let's assume that each business was worth, on average, $1 million. 200,000 millionaires destroyed. That's like $200 billion taken out. And that's folks just saying they're only worth $1 million. I have a funny feeling because small businesses, folks, are not just mom and pop. It's mom and pop with 50 employees. That's a business, folks. It's worth a lot more than $1 million. These people are enriching themselves while selling this country out. Oh, yeah, Dr. Fauci, I think he had a little bit to do with China and their gain of function research into weaponized biological nuisances, like the common cold, the coronavirus. Bat soup. Unbelievable. Man, do we have anything else coming from your side? Yes, we do. We got Who's Your Life 67. He said, why doesn't some of the World Economic Forum get Arkancided? Could change the scheme of things. The reason I don't think we're hearing about the World Economic Forum getting Arkancided, Hoosier, is because they are the ones at the very top. They're the puppet masters who keep their hands clean and invisible while the strings dangle below and make the puppets dance. Yeah, we know about Klaus Schmidt. We know about their political puppets in office, right? Who act and sound and look and play the fool and push their countries to the brink of destruction. But these rich bastards, folks, in Davos, Switzerland, oh yeah, you're aware, folks, right now of all of the gold that has made its way into Switzerland. Yep, these rich bastards have pulled their gold from New York, London, Paris. They pulled their gold as much as they can, if they can get it out of any other country. And they've got it buried in some of the newest, most secure, deepest, and well-hidden gold vaults. Yeah, they're going to destroy all the economies, folks, but they'll have the gold, the very thing that all money is based on. It's not a barbarous relic. It's not a shiny rock, as someone like Ben Shlomo Bernanke would have you believe. Gold will always be gold. And these people know it. I know it. You know it. They know it. And they're hiding all the gold in Switzerland. The World Economic Forum, their members are hiding. They're keeping themselves very secure. Even if you know their names and their faces, you think you can find them? If I was one of these rich bastards and worth billions of dollars, you know what I would do? I would find a double. Someone who looks just like me, a doppelganger. And I would say, you, put on John's clothes. You, go to John's house. You can eat John's food, sleep in John's bed, enjoy John's luxuries. And if someone comes knocking on your door, you've got to answer the door and say, you're John. You think these rich people are going to allow themselves to be shot and killed? Well, it's quite possible, folks. They might get caught ultimately. That's why I say know who they are. But remember this. The Nazis, after they lost in World War II, in fact, before they lost officially, they fled. They fled Germany. All around the world. Nazis actually came to America, believe it or not, under Operation Paperclip. But the ones that weren't given a free taxi ride over here by the U.S. government or by the Soviet Union, many Nazis went to the Soviet Union. As many went to the Soviet Union as came to America. But the ones that didn't want to be part of either system, the communist or the American fascist system that was in place and was in place prior to World War II, by the way, folks. And the American fascist system. That's right, folks. There were fascists in America. They actually tried to have President FDR assassinated. There was a coup attempt in the 1930s. Yes, it is true. They tried getting Marine Corps General Smedley Butler to lead the military coup against FDR, and it failed. You didn't hear that in school? Oh, no, because they try keeping that secret. The World Economic Forum leaders, they don't want to be arkancited. They're not snitching themselves off. They're being very quiet about their who they are and what exactly their part in this sick play is. They don't have to say anything, right? Because these countries are doing it to themselves. The Nancy Pelosi's, the Christine Lagarde's, the George Soros's, who are themselves really high-ranking puppets, but puppets nonetheless. They're the ones, folks, pushing and destroying everything. Down through their ranks, down to the lowest people, right? The head of universities, governors of states, the mayors of cities. They're all playing their sick little parts, destroying Europe, destroying America, destroying the world. The Great Reset, folks, is bigger than you could ever imagine. And it is more abominable than you could have ever dreamed. Is it the apocalypse? Who am I to say? I'm not that kind of prophet. I'm just a guy who is predicting what is coming, and it is coming to pass and is moving very, very quickly. Are you prepared? Heidi says, they blew the pipeline because they were afraid that Europe would have to refriend Putin to avoid freezing. Ah, so well put. Thank you, Heidi. Yes. Yes, indeed. Europe, parts of Europe were what? They were capitulating. They were bending. They were saying, all right, Putin wins. They're going to have to hit the refriend him button on Facebook. Kiss his ass. Well, guess what? They couldn't have that, could they? They need the world to hate Putin and hate Russia, so they blew up the pipeline so no one can be Putin's friend. Now who's their friend? Who's your buddy? Who's your friend? The United States and other liquid natural gas, LNG or CNG providers. Natural gas providers. Because it's not going to be Russia. Not anymore. And freeze to death, many Europeans will. Suffer tremendously, many Europeans will. Live in first world status, not to the extent that they were. They're turning Europe into a shithole, filling it with a bunch of immigrants who have no understanding of law, culture, or anything European. They're bringing their trash with them, which includes the raping of any woman that isn't part of their system. Unfreaking believable, unconscionable, unimaginable, yet it's all happening. Doubt me? Look it up. We talk about it here not because I'm making shit up, but because I want to use satire and my cynicism and my cold and dark wit to tear their shit apart, examine it, and bring you the pieces and ask you, are you prepared? Chance favors the prepared mind, folks. God bless America, protect us, and Godspeed to you in getting prepared and understanding. Semper Fi.